Let's go ahead and find out, everybody, as we jump into the very first game of the Masters Finals of the 2024 Pokemon World Championships. For Luca, you are right away going to see this Miraidon next to this Urshifu, but for Yuta, it is going to be the Pelipper and the Landorus.
This Landorus is in such a commanding position at the moment. You've got the rain on the field, so that not only allows Sansei's Storm to be able to deal 100% accuracy, but Pelipper is also rocking that helping hand. If you can give a boost to the Landorus with Sheer Force as the ability going through for something like a Sansei's Storm, that is going to be able to remove the Miraidon from play.
And the Landorus, it sees the perfect target on the other side. This Miraidon with the Terra Fairy is going to be weak to the Sludge Bomb, but it's also being pressured down by those super effective Sansei's Storms. So this could be one way that we actually need to see Luca make one of these split-second decisions. Do you try to Terrasilize down? Do you try to get yourself off the field with something like a Volt Switch? It's going to come down to this first turn.
The Urshifu on Luca's side as well, having that Focus Sash gives it a little bit of flexibility. You can apply a lot of pressure with something like the Surging Strikes, particularly boosted up by the opposing Pelipper's Rain, and really kind of provide a way of getting through that opposing Landorus. But let's see how this turn is going to play out.
It does have a Focus Sash, so it's going to be able to withstand one of those hits as well before the Pelipper may be able to follow up. But that's why this Miraidon is going to be forced to have to manually switch off the field. It's going to be the Iron Hands that takes its place, hopefully able to take these hits also. You see the attack boost come through from this Quark Drive as... Look at that, there is a Terrasalization.
Yes, the Iron Hands joins the field. It is holding that Assault Vest, so it's going to be able to, withstand a decent amount of the special attack that the opposing Landorus is able to throw its way, but it is going to go for that defensive Terra type into the Ghost typing here, as well as Pelipper does use its wings to give a helping hand to the Landorus.
This is one way that the Pelipper can bypass some of these speed interactions, just be able to help out as the Sludge Bomb gets tanked here by this Iron Hands. In response, this Urshifu with the Surging Strikes, it's going to be 3 hits, and this Landorus, that's going to be the only thing it gets to do for this game number 1 as it goes down.
Fantastic play by Luca, the one-hit KO, removing this threatening Landorus from play. I love the way Luca was able to pivot this in here. From Yuta's side, it looks like he was thinking that Miraidon is going to go for the Terra Fairy. So then it's going to be a lot more vulnerable to something like the Sludge Bomb coming through from the Landorus. So a fantastic switch by Luca, not only using that Assault Vest to take the attack, but enabling the Urshifu to come through and get that damage on the board.
It's a very tough turn for both of our trainers having to think about that, right? Is that Terra going to come through? Are you actually going to see a switch? And so both of them really having to make that quick decision. But where do we go from here, Lou? Because right now, Yuta is going to be down 1 Pokemon and critically down the Terra. It's gone.
That's very true, and it's going to be interesting to see which Pokemon Yuta has in the back. If it is something like that Ice Rider Calyrex, you can start getting into a position where you might be able to set up the Trick Room and gain a little bit more momentum on your field. And we are going to see the Calyrex join the battle here now. This is your big offensive powerhouse. And again, you have the utility with something like the Pelipper to be able to go for a helping hand here, just to be able to boost up some extra damage. Or at the same time, try and deal out some big damage with a Hurricane, because those do hurt, considering it's holding a Life Orb.
Yeah, but the problem here is that because that Terra is gone, this Calyrex can't even go for defensive Terra with the Terra Grass. Maybe a little bit of good news for it is Luca is going to remove the Urshifu from the field in favor of that Miraidon. So what is going to happen on this next turn as you see the Hadron Engine activate once again, and Calyrex is also going to get out of there.
It's a little bit of a bait here, actually, as Amoonguss joins the field. So we do see this kind of slower mode in the back that was kept for Yuta as the Fake Out comes through into that Amoonguss. Going to be able to retaliate with a little bit of Rocky Helmet as Pelipper does go for that Weather Ball, is going to be bringing the Water type attack down into Iron Hands, but not enough to get the knockout. The bulk there really prevailing for Iron Hands.
Not quite enough, but now this Amoonguss is on the field. While it's not going to be able to go for something like the Spore because the electric terrain is active, none of these Pokemon will be able to get put to sleep. It does have the opportunity here to go for something like the Pollen Puff or the Clear Smog, just get a little bit of damage down, but it can also go for the Rage Powder if it wants to. That's what we see with this Pelipper switching off the field.
This is what Yuta wants, though. You want to make sure that you have the Calyrex next to the Amoonguss so you can provide that redirection to enable a safe setup with the Trick Room. But it's always a little risky switching in, and at least if the... it's going to be just the Draco Meteor straight out the blocks here into the Amoonguss. That's gone. It does not have the redirectional support anymore.
That's going to be another knockout here for Luca as Yuta, just like that, is down to his 2 final Pokemon in this first game. The Wild Charge as well is going to have to be taken here by this Ice Rider Calyrex. And on this electric terrain, not only is he going to be able to get a boost from that, but you're also going to see that massive attack added in. The recoil, though, going to eliminate this Iron Hands from this game, but there's still so many more Pokemon that Luca gets to depend on.
I mean, honestly, Luca has played this so well. Losing the Iron Hands is actually a benefit because you get the option to bring your Urshifu back onto the field, and it still has its Focus Sash intact. 2 more turns of this electric terrain as well for Miraidon to play around. Pelipper also does not want to have to face it. It looks looks like that's the forfeit coming in from Yuta. Luca's going to take game 1.
What an explosive start to this match as well. First, a second turn, very, very difficult decision there for both of our players to make, and Luca was the one that ended up getting it right.
Exactly. I think as well when you see the Pelipper in play, and we're so used to seeing Pelipper holding the focus sash, but the fact that it was there so vulnerable, you've got the Miraidon that's in the dominant speed tier, just able to apply so much pressure with any electricity it wants to throw its way. Things were looking very dire for Yuta. I have to say, coming into this match, Rosemary, you and I were talking about how turn 0 is going to be critical, and that's where the momentum is going to swing, and that's exactly what we saw happen here. Pelipper going for the helping hand, perfect. If this had been a Terra Fairy Miraidon on the opposing side, this would have been a knockout here for Yuta and would have already gained so much momentum, but Luca not enabling that for him here, instead switching in the Iron Hands and getting the KO on the Landorus instead.
Had it been the Sandseer Storm, you're still doing a critical amount of damage to both Pokemon, and so it's a little bit hard to kind of consider maybe would that have been a bit more to go for in that first turn, so you know that you can break the focus sash on that Urshifu and also just start to chip away at either the Miraidon or this Iron Hands that switched in.
I think you make a very valid point there actually, because as you've said, if the Iron Hands comes in, yes, it is still holding that Assault Vest, but it is still not going to appreciate taking a Sandseer Storm, and you know that you have the accuracy as well with Pelipper on the field. So going into this game 2, considering that Luca is now just one game away from being the champion, if you are Yuta, you have got to do everything you can to stop him in his tracks. Make sure that if you are bringing those powerful Pokemon like the Landorus, for example, that you're making those turn calls correct.
We did not get a chance to actually see Trick Room get utilized in that first game. I wonder if that is a strategy that Yuta could potentially rely upon in order to get an upper hand in some way. We don't necessarily know how the Iron Hands and the Calyrex Ice Rider would fare against each other, whilst they are both considerably on the lower side of that speed, but one option that you could see Yuta try to rely upon.
I would almost like to see the Calyrex coming out here with the Pelipper. You can provide some support with the Rain here as well as being able to go for something like that Weather Ball, deal some big damage out on the field and enable Calyrex to get that Trick Room set up. You can also support with very powerful offensive Pokemon like the Landorus to try and get a knockout while Calyrex sets up. And you also have a Mungus for redirectional support. Lots of options, but let's see what the trainers have gone for.
Well, there's going to be an adjustment here from Luca as we do get a chance to see this Ogerpon, Hearthflame, and the Miraidon. But here for Yuta, it is going to be that Iron Valiant finally making an appearance on this stream next to his Landorus.
Yuta is not slowing down, instead going on the speedy side here. You've got the Iron Valiant on the field. With the boost that it's going to get from Quark Drive, now it's going to be extra speedy, and you have the Choice Scarf on this Landorus. Iron Valiant's going to be the fastest thing on the field.
And that Landorus not too far behind it either. And so now, Luca's going to have to figure out what to actually go for here. With this Iron Valiant, it is running Spirit Break, so that is one way that you can start to control a bit of the special attack output from this Miraidon, because you have no way to actually remove the terrain. So it's always going to keep that Hadron Engine boost to its special attack. The other thing that you have, though, is if you really want to, you can consider trying to switch something in or go for coaching. There's a lot of options here for this Iron Valiant to provide in terms of support.
It's going to be tempting to go for the Spirit Break, though, to kind of force the Terrestrialization on the opposing Miraidon, but then Miraidon has that redirectional support with the Ogerpon next to it to be able to provide that redirection. You do see the Terrestrialization come through, though. It has been forced. There is no Dragon type on the field anymore. A pure Fairy type in the form of Miraidon here. Something like a Dazzling Gleam would deal a significant chunk of damage. It's going to be some redirection coming in for the Ogerpon, just going to save it from taking a Spirit Break and luring its special attack.
Well, the Spirit Break into the Ogerpon is going to do just a little bit of damage, is resisted though, and that special attack drop not going to matter on this physically offensive threat, but it is going to be the Sludge Bomb follow-up that gets the knockout at the end of the day. But the most important thing is that this Miraidon is going to be alive, and also with full HP to go for the Volt Switch into the Iron Valiant, which is a one-hit knockout.
You've removed one big threat from the field here, as well as enabling Luca the opportunity to now adjust and switch up the ball position. The Volt Switch will mean a Pokemon has to come into the fruition, but then because you have had that other partner removed, you can also bring a second Pokemon into play. It's going to be the Iron Hands. We know that Fake Out potential is on the field, as well as once again boosting up that Quark Drive and boosting the attack of the Iron Hands.
Oh boy. We've got two future Paradox Pokemon in this match, but it's going to be the Iron Hands that continues to prevail above all right now.
Do you know what I wonder, though, is if Yuta is now going to completely switch things up here. You went with the fast mode front and center. Now you have the utility to bring in something slower from the back. It is that Calyrex Ice Rider, and you have the offensive pressure from something like the Landorus that could go for a lot of damage right now into both these opposing Pokemon. If you've got the Calyrex in play, you can try and get the Trick Room, and if there is indeed something like the Amoonguss in the back as well, that could be a fantastic endgame state for Yuta.
It could be, but but there's not really a great way to remove this Miraidon before it can potentially get a decent amount of damage out. You look at the landers with this Sludge Bomb, and it's not necessarily guaranteed to be enough for a knockout in a lot of cases. So if there's any little bit of extra damage that could come through, maybe this Calyrex is able to withstand another attack. It's why this Terra is going to be so important to have preserved for something like this Ice Rider to have a defensive capability.
I almost wonder if the Terra on the Landorus could be good as well, though, because you know Fake Out's in the field with the Iron Hands, you're locked into Sludge Bomb, and you're going to be able to do a significant chunk of damage to the opposing Miraidon here. If you do indeed go for something like the Ghost Terra, then you can avoid being hit by that Fake Out. But the Grass Terrestrialization is also a key component. A lot of decisions here for Yuta.
A lot of decisions and not a whole lot of time to do it, as he is down a game in this set. One more win here and Luca is going to become your world champion. So it comes down to this. The Ice Rider Calyrex going to take on that Grass Terrestrialization. He's going to have to hope that it can get through and survive some of this damage, and that this Trick Room is going to be the exact environment that it wants to be in. But as there's going to be a Fake Out here, this Ice Rider Calyrex is not going to be able to get a chance to move, as a Sludge Bomb in return definitely not enough to knock out this Miraidon. So it's free to go for another Draco Meteor, another one-hit knockout, and that is going to be Luca one step closer to becoming the world champion.
No stopping Luca at this point in time. You needed the Helping Hands to be able to get the KO with that Sludge Bomb. It just wasn't enough without a critical hit to completely deactivate this Miraidon on the field. Fantastic play from Luca here, and you see the Amoonguss coming in as well. The last two remaining Pokemon for Yuta in his bid to become the world champion. Trick Room is not in play. However, Amoonguss can now go for a little bit of redirection. You know that the opposing Miraidon is now locked into that Draco Meteor. It's had its special attack dropped, so it's not going to be dealing as much damage.
Yeah, and if you are able to actually get this Trick Room set up, then it is going to be an easier way to try to get through this Miraidon. You have the speed in your control, and you will be able to start dishing out some of these Glacial Lances. As Miraidon does go for a Draco Meteor, though, into the Amoonguss, it's going to do a decent amount of damage.
And no redirection coming through here. Instead, just the natural double target from Luca into the Amoonguss. The hands on. The Iron Hand's going to take a little bit of recoil from the Rocky Helmet, but critically, Yuta still has two Pokemon remaining on the field. It did not go for the redirection. It goes for the Pollen Puff, has Calyrex's back, and if Calyrex is going for the Trick Room, it flips the match on its head.
Now the speeds are going to be in control potentially for this Ice Rider Calyrex, but we have to see how it's going to fare against something like this Iron Hands.
Iron Hands is definitely a Pokemon that can be trained to be very, very slow, and in some situations can indeed match that Calyrex in form. So we're going to have to see exactly how these trainers have trained their Pokemon in terms of speed and who is going to be the faster. Amoonguss really sitting on borrowed time here. There's no other Pokemon to switch out with, so the Regenerator ability is null and void. And because the electric trainer's on the field, you cannot go for any spores. If anything, Amoonguss here needs to maybe, I think, only go for the redirection. You've got Clear Smog, but I don't think that's going to do too much. Although into the Miraidon, it might be enough.
It might be enough, absolutely, but Amoonguss and Trick Room is going to be the first to move. Iron Hands is going to take a very pitiful amount of damage there, and as it goes for the Drain Punch now, it is going to get a little bit of recoil thanks to hitting into the Rocky Helmet.
And it went before the Calyrex as well, so able to get a little bit of damage back. This could be indicative of how they are trained indeed. Of course, Amoonguss does go down, and now Calyrex has the utility to go for that Glacial Lance. Instead, however, it's high horsepower. I mean, that's one way to do it. You get a KO, and you will get the Chilling Neigh boost as well, but Miraidon is yet to move.
It is yet to move, but it is at -4 special attack. So it may be, as long as this is not going to be a critical hit, it is going to just do a little bit of damage at a time. Now that Miraidon is at -6, as the Farigiraf is now going to come in as that fourth and final here for Luca.
This is not what you want to see if you are the Calyrex here. Not only is the Electric Sea boosting up the defense on Farigiraf's side, but it is rocking that foul play. And as your attack boost from Chilling Neigh get higher and higher, foul play's potential gets bigger and bigger. Calyrex going for the Glacial Lance. However, this is going to be enough to get the KO on Miraidon, but Farigiraf, no, it's still here. It's going to have to take another one of those.
It's going to have to take another one, and it's going to have to survive another attack coming in from this Farigiraf. And so, as we see the Chilling Neigh boost come up one more time, it's going to be even more detrimental as the foul play goes into the Calyrex. It brings it down so low.
So close, but Calyrex hanging on. It is now a 1v1. Calyrex is going to move first. This is a single target down into the Farigiraf.
And that's going to be enough for the knockout. We're going to a Game 3 between Yuta and Luca.
Does it get closer than this, Pokemon trainers? Game 3, Masters Division, Pokemon World Championships. I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm not even in my seat, Rosemary. It's that intense. Oh my goodness. Here we go.
I cannot believe how down to the wire that went. So much to take away from the last couple of turns of that game. as we ended up seeing the Trick Room get set up, the Iron Hands did move first in Trick Room. What an interesting takeaway from that game.
Trick Room was honestly very interesting here. Not only were the speeds, like you said, with the Iron Hands and the Calyrex interesting, but the key thing for me was that Amoonguss. It was able to hang on 2 hit points remaining. That was the completely pivotal thing, and you can see the celebration there from Yuta, knowing that that was clutch to be able to close out the end game. But also, I love the turn where he set up the Trick Room and did not go for the redirection, instead going, okay, Luca, if he goes down into the opposing Calyrex, then it's over anyway. But if he doubles down into this Amoonguss and I allow it to have the Pollen Puff boost, that's exactly what Calyrex needed in the end game as well. So fantastic to see that come into play.
It did. You could see just how much the HP differential got made up there from that Pollen Puff. Absolutely. I mean, there you go. Even just being able to deal that Rocky Helmet chip, you could see Luca was a little bit disappointed not being able to actually get the knockout there. And so as this Iron Hands gets to go for another attack, it has to take that high horsepower, ends up getting knocked out for all of its troubles. But then we finally get into the last couple of moments where it's the Farigiraf with the foul play versus this Ice Rider Calyrex that had those attack boosts from Chilling Neigh.
Honestly, that can be so detrimental. If you get those attack boosts up, we know how much damage Foul Play is capable of. But look at that, 35 hit points remaining. And I would be so interested to go back and do the maths on whether that Pollen Puff was indeed super critical towards the end. Farigiraf goes down, though, the single target, doing that extra bit of damage to push it over the edge, as well as obviously having had the boost just meant that it was going to be a fall for the Giraffe there. But now, Pokemon trainers, it is game 3. 1 game separates these 2 trainers from world champion and runner-up.
Cannot believe this is what it all comes down to. You can feel the energy right now as both of them get locked in and ready to go for this 3rd and final game. We ended up seeing a really good adjustment from both of them as well as we headed into the second one. The Ogerpon Heartflame there for Luca, the Iron Valiant making an appearance there for Yuta, and even though we didn't get a chance to see the Iron Valiant do too much, it did force out a Terra that helped Yuta navigate through that game just a little bit better. But Lou, everybody, let's get ready as Game 3 is upon us here at the 2024 Pokemon World Championships between Yuta Ishigaki and Luca Ceribelli.
The leads are out once again, Miraidon with its best buddy Ogerpon by its side for redirection. And now we have got the Speedy and the Slow. We have got the Iron Valiant and the Calyrex Ice Rider.
Both of them on the field right now, it kind of forces your hand. What sort of mode would you potentially want to go for? And let's not forget that this Iron Valiant has the opportunity to go for coaching that would help to increase the attack stat of this Ice Rider Calyrex right away.
I mean, if you go for the Terra Grass as well on that Calyrex Ice Rider, you're in a difficult spot here. It means you will resist the electric type attacks from the opposing Miraidon. Draco Meteor will be neutral, but you are fearing that opposing Ogerpon. If it wants to go for that fire type Ivy Cudgel, it is going to be dealing a huge chunk of damage. But whether or not with the coaching, being able to boost up your defense as well, that's going to be able to put you in a survivability spot, is yet to be determined. And if there is not a Terrestrialization coming through from that Miraidon, a Glacial Lance is going to hurt like a trap.
It will. So I think it comes down once again to what's going to happen on this very first turn, as we do see the leads on the board. Do you also continue to think about Trick Room setup in this moment? I wonder.
Exactly. Trick Room has the capability here, and really, Yuta is in, I think, Luca's head. What's it going to be? Redirection coming through from that Ogerpon, drawing in all of the attack potential, maybe something like a Spirit Break, but instead, it's going to be that coaching coming through. And as you can see, Calyrex is going to be gaining the attack and the defense that is not redirected by the Follow Me.
But the Draco Meteor into that slot, it's not going to help you with that with your special defense, but this Ice Rider Calyrex does hold on as it gets to set up the Trick Room.
Now the speeds are very, very interesting. The Iron Valiant in a little bit of a detrimental position, but you could always use this opportunity to switch something in from the back, or let the Iron Valiant go down, be happy for it to be KO'd, and allow it to try and go for something in return here. You could always maybe switch it out for something like the Amoonguss, maybe just get some Rocky Helmet damage here, but for me it's about the Calyrex. In this situation, do you actually go for a Protect and allow one turn of Trick Room to allow for a ball position switch from that Iron Valiant, or do you just go for the Glacial Lance?
I think you just have to try to make the most of the attack boost that you've been given, right? You may not necessarily be able to get a big knockout onto this Ogerpon, but also depends on maybe how these are trained, but at the very least you've scared away this Miraidon. It is going to retreat, and instead it is going to be Iron Hands that takes its place. So Let's see what happens from here after we see this attack boost for the Iron Hands.
Well, Yuta doesn't necessarily want to see this Iron Hands. We know that it has the potential to be faster in Trick Room against that Calyrex, and with the very low HP remaining, it's got something like a Fake Out, should be able to get the edge on it. The Pelipper joining the field, though, bringing that rain is just going to enable none of these Fire-type attacks to deal as much damage, but Ogerpon playing defensively and going for that Spiky Shield.
Spiky Shield means that you are actually going to have it on the field a little bit longer. It's going to deny a boost, another boost to this Ice Rider Calyrex's attack, but as it's going to be the Iron Hands that has to take its place, it has the Assault Fist. It doesn't necessarily have a way to boost up its defenses, so that's over 50% it's going to take from a single Glacial Lance.
If I'm the Iron Hands now, I've got a decision to make. Do you go for the Fake Out into the Calyrex, or does the Calyrex protect? And then you wouldn't go for the Fake Out into the Pelipper, because if you leave the Calyrex unchecked, another Glacial Lance is going to do a huge chunk of damage. But if you leave the Pelipper unchecked, something like the Weather Ball is going to hurt going down into the, or a Hurricane even, into the opposing Ogerpon.
That's why we're going to see the Amoonguss actually end up taking this Pelipper's place instead, and the Calyrex smartly protecting itself so it doesn't have to fear a Fake Out. Fake Out does go into the Amoonguss though, so now that you see that come through, it's going to be a little bit more Rocky Helmet Recoil and the Ivy Cudgel going into the protected Calyrex.
I really like this play by Yuta. It's sacrificing a ton of Trick Room to switch up the ball position, because now Amoonguss going to be the slowest thing on the field. It can go for something like the Pollen Puff and help that Calyrex regenerate a little bit of HP, particularly with the rain in play. It gives it a little bit more defensive support, or at the same time you can go for that redirection. You know that the Iron Hands only has single target type attacks, so you can draw them in. Obviously the Ogerpon, however, being a grass type, is not going to be affected by that Rage Powder, so it makes things difficult.
It does make it difficult, meaning that if you try to redirect away something like an Ivy Cudgel, or even just a Wood Hammer, this Calyrex is already not going to be sitting at a very healthy amount of HP. So as you head into this next turn, we are going to end up seeing a Terrassalization first, and let's see what it's for.
Nice to see it a little bit later in the game, but it is indeed going to be on the Ogerpon here, dropping its grass type and just becoming a fully fledged fire type in this rain on the field here, trying to maybe use that embody aspect to boost up the attack stat and get rid of this Amoonguss.
Would be nice, but the Amoonguss going for the Rage Powder means it's going to work because it did get rid of that grass typing. So it's going to draw this attention away from this Ogerpon, as it also has to take the low kick. Another little bit of chip damage down to this Iron Hands as the Glacial Lance hits into both of these targets. The Iron Hands is definitely going to go down, and the Ogerpon, now that it has removed that grass typing, it still only takes about half of that damage.
It's still going to be vulnerable though, considering that's another chilling Nay boost that the Calyrex has got. The Ivy Cudgel going to come through in the rain down into this opposing Amoonguss. It's going to be able to hit hard, and it is enough to get the knockout.
Ooh, the knockout even through the rain. That is what you can see from just this embody aspect attack boost, really trying to help out there. It allows Yuta to bring in something else, and this Calyrex in Trick Room is still going to be one of the faster things on the field, but it's going to be the Farigiraf now that's going to take this Iron Hands' place.
This gets very interesting now. You've got the defense boost coming through from the Electric Sea, but you've also got Pelipper, generally on the slower side Pokemon-wise on the field. But whether the Pelipper or the Farigiraf are going to be able to move first could be critical here. Pelipper in a prime position to target down something like a Weather Ball into that Ogerpon and remove it from play. At the same time, Farigiraf doesn't want to have to take another one of these Ivy Glacial Lancers, maybe doubled up from the Pelipper, could be enough to get the KO. You have got the other boost. Ogerpon may go down to another Glacial Lance.
This is the last turn of Trick Room though, so we are going to have to see Yuta try to make the most of it. And while you have all of these boosts intact, even the sliver of HP means that you will be up and ready to go for something like another attack. Now that there is also this Terrassalization on the Ogerpon, there's no way that Farigiraf can actually Terrassalize to a Water type to try to resist some of this damage. So we see the Ogerpon go for the Spiky Shield here. Very safe play to make sure that it will be one of the fastest things outside of this Trick Room. So when we do see this attack from this Calyrex Ice Rider, it is not going to end up attacking into the Ogerpon there. But critically, we also don't see a helping hand from this Pelipper. But the Farigiraf going for the foul play will get the knockout onto the Calyrex, but what is this Pelipper going to do?
I mean, I don't know if there's too much that it can do here. The foul play removing the restricted here. Pelipper was going for the Weather Ball. It is finding its mark down onto that Farigiraf. Rain boosted, Life Ball boosted. It gets the knockout. But both these trainers now, as Trick Room ends, forced to their last two remaining Pokemon. Pelipper's going to be joined by the Iron Valiant, and it's going to be the Miraidon joining the Ogerpon.
Yes, but now that we end up seeing this board state, we have the Iron Valiant that's going to be coming back in for Yuta, which outside of Trick Room, now that that's expired, is going to be faster than this Miraidon, especially because Miraidon is going to reset the electric terrain as it comes back in.
That's very true, giving a natural Quark Drive boost to this Iron Valiant. And as you said already, already as well. The terrestrialization has been used on that Ogerpon, so there's no fairy terrestrialization that can come through from this Miraidon. I have to say though, the one thing for Ogerpon here is that redirection. If you want to go for the follow me and save the Miraidon from having to take a powerful Spirit Break from the Iron Valiant, that can be exactly what the Miraidon needs in order to get some damage down on the field. You could go for something like a Dazzling Gleam, but there is the potential of a White Guard on the opposing side, so I think you've got to lock in something that's going to be boosted by the Electro Train, maybe the Electro Drift. I think it's time to see it.
I think it might be time to see it as well. We saw how much the Volt Switch from the Miraidon did into the Iron Valiant before, so we know that an Electro Drift would certainly be able to get the knockout as well. Yuta still hasn't used Terra though, and there is a very good defensive Terra, but you take a look at this Pelipper being able to terrestrialize to the grass type.
Yeah, Pelipper can't protect either, so it's going to be completely vulnerable to any electric type attacks that are coming its way. So I think as you have got the terrestrialization in your back pocket, Yuta needs to unveil it now, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing, Rose.
It's going to be a terrestrialization into potentially one of the final turns of this Masters Finals. The Pelipper going to take that grass typing, a great way to be able to resist these electric type attacks from this Miraidon, but you do make yourself a bit vulnerable to this Ogerpon, even if in the rain. Helping hand though into this Iron Valiant. Do we end up seeing a redirection though from this Ogerpon? And yes we do! It is going to redirect away this attack.
The helping hand boost though is still going to be able to come through. Spirit Break, fastest thing on the field, connects down into the Ogerpon, but not enough to be able to get the knockout. And as a physical attacker, Ogerpon does not mind taking that drop for its partner Miraidon that does go for the Electro Drift.
The Electro Drift into this Iron Valiant is going to be enough to secure the knockout here. You see the headset come off, and Yuta knows this might just be all she wrote. This Pelipper, this last bastion of hope here for Yuta to try to get through this game, but the rain has stopped. The protection is gone here for this grass-type Pelipper. And as we see the forfeit locked in,